Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Hound of Shadow.
Oh, scary.
But before we do, we got a lot of feedback from last week.
Oh boy.
From all sides. So we got feedback from our friend Rob O'Hara.
Flack.
And Flack. And he says he just listened to the Three Stooges episode.
Oh, good.
And he said on a scale of 1 to 10, he'd probably rate himself as an 8 as a Stooges fan.
So is he going to take me to task here?
Well, he says, I've seen every short and movie multiple times. I own several Three Stooges books. I'm a paying member of the fan club and have even visited the official Stoogeum.
Oh, I'd like to go there.
Do you know where it is?
I don't. I read about it, but it was a couple weeks ago.
Ambler, PA.
Ambler?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that?
No idea.
That's not too far, though, is it?
It's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Pennsylvania's too far.
We could stooge on up there sometime.
And he says, for what it's worth, I aced the trivia quiz you gave on the show.
Well, yeah.
He says, I love the old Three Stooges game, and my review is similar to Aaron's. It's certainly flawed and tough to defend, but I still enjoy it. The Amiga version's better than the C64 version. The C64 has even longer loading times. So, and he says that you'll appreciate this. The false intro with Defender of the Crown was specifically scary for rotten pirates like me who spent hours downloading the game with the dial-up modem or horrified that we might have been duped into downloading the wrong game.
That happened sometimes back in the day.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that for a while. Yeah, I can see where that would make you upset.
Yeah. He said, one minor correction for the show.
Yeah.
I believe I heard Aaron say this was the first and only licensed Three Stooges game, but it's not the case.
I said it was the first CinemaWare licensed game.
Oh, okay. So are you aware?
There was an arcade game for the Three Stooges.
So you might have thought that in your mind and just not said it on the show, because he said that you didn't say that on the show.
It's possible. But I did know.
Do you know who released it?
I don't.
Milestar.
Yeah, I didn't never guess that.
Yeah.
Milestar, didn't they do one of the Laserdisc games too? Didn't they Mach 3 or something like that?
I don't know.
I think they did.
Okay. But he said you can play it along with the pinball machine at the Stoogeum, which is at arcade-museum.com.
There's a Three Stooges pinball machine?
Yeah. Apparently
When
so.
did that come out? I must play it.
Give us some more information about that.
By the way, just FYI, I just re-listened to Flack's podcast on CopyFest. That's a great one. I used to go to CopyFest all the time.
What is a CopyFest?
Have you not heard that particular podcast?
Well, some of our listeners might not.
This is pertinent to the show to a certain degree. CopyFests were when you would get together with a bunch of people and you would copy software. Highly illegal. Again, the gray area. Well, I don't know what they are. So I distinctly remember the bigger copy fest we went to were at the Huntington Mall in the Long John Silver's.
Really?
Which is now where the Chick-fil-A... No, it's where the Ruby Tuesdays
where the Ruby Tuesdays is.
We would go in and the entire right side, everything on the right of the counter, that was Pirate Zone.
Wow.
And we would go in there and...
now, did they pick Long John Silver's on purpose? Because of the whole piracy thing?
The manager wanted some action.
Okay.
As I recall.
They weren't that clever.
And so we would go in there and... I mean, that's not the only copy fest I went to, but it's a lot like Rob said in his podcast. You would get your machine, you'd roll in there. Now, at the time that I was going to those, I had a PC that we would do it. Now, when it came to copying stuff on the Amiga, I really only got together with a couple guys, and never more than one guy at a time. So that was strictly a PC thing. We get together with all your buddies. Whoever got the hot new games would come in and you'd swap all your stuff.
So each person, you're talking about each person would come in to the Long John Silver's with a PC and a monitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No
Where
laptops.
did you plug all these things into?
power strips.
Just power strips upon power strips.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
You know, and my buddy would arrange it, and then, I mean, and I went with him to other little copy outings. I remember one time we took a trip to the beach, me and him, and he brought his computer and all of his discs, and we went down there and met a guy at his house and had a little mini copy fest. And the whole time we were copying software, this guy was just killing my buddy. He's verbally destroyed him. And my buddy just took it. And he just kept his head down. He just kept those discs working, man. He wanted them. And then the most brutal copy fest, I went to this guy's house, and all I wanted...
It sounds like the name of it. The most brutal copy fest.
the guy had and this is going to sound so ludicrous, but he had a game. There was a game out for the PC called X-Wing. Right? You ever heard of X-Wing?
X-Wing, yeah. It's
it was like a simulator.
Right.
And so...
Arcade simulation.
This guy had told me, he's like, listen, he goes, I've got the AGA version of X-Wing. And that's going to sound stupid now. But at the time...
You thought it existed.
We were all on the BBS.
Mm-hmm.
There was no one covered the Amiga.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes. You know, I want this game. So I went over and I copied stuff for this guy. I was like, when are you going to break this out? And he goes, I'm going to get it. And then he finished copying the last thing he wanted. And he's like, sorry, I got to go. And he took and literally shoved me out the door and locked the door. He tricked me. He tricked me. And the sad thing is, I wasn't like 8. I was like, I was out of high school, folks. That's the sad thing. That's pretty bad, isn't it?
That is
pretty bad. But Copy Fest were fun.
I mean, you know, I always think
illegal.
about, you copied all these games. What percentage of the games that you copied did you actually spend any time with?
Oh, 10%.
Because I know, like, with emulation, I'll spend hours and hours and hours tweaking hyperspin, looking at my list, stuff like that. And I probably played, like you said, a tenth of that actually playing the game.
It's funny. I'm gonna next show probably I'm gonna bring my disc caddy over with all my original games in. Mm-hmm. I thought it'd be fun to look through.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them before I came over tonight. And I mean, you're talking I saw 100 bot games. I mean, these are games that were paid for, legitimate copies of games. And I've probably played a tenth of them, or even less. You know, a lot of them are big, like police quests or that sort of things, and they're huge. You know, and I just never played them that much. You know, and most of what I played was simple stuff. But when you're at a copy fest, man, you got to get every last game. You know, you got to go to worst. And I have a feeling now. Again, dirty, rotten, stinking, filthy pirate, Aaron. I was a bad boy. Don't do that. But I would wager that the Copy Fest is a universal thing. I bet the listeners in Norway, Germany, Sweden, the UK, everyone probably did it, and they had their own little stories. I'd love to hear them. I did it.
Speaking of that, or not really, but...
Transition. Gone.
But I heard from Sven.
Oh.
Sven sent me a message.
Holy smokes.
I thought that he hated us and he wanted us to die, but it turns out that our email just kept getting sent to his spam folder.
Oh no.
So, but he said that things are still, he says, real hectic at CinemaWare right now.
I bet.
They're still hoping to ship the Defender of the Crown Definitive Collector's Edition soon.
Now I saw an email that someone put up where he said that he had everything. It was just a couple weeks ago where he said, I think I may have posted it, I'm not sure, but he was like, we've got everything we need. They were not, there were about a month ago, I posted one where it's like, we're waiting on one thing. I can't remember, it was like, it was something so you didn't think about it. It was like stickers for the front or seals for the box or some weird thing. But I saw something where he said he had everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the last time I checked, they had, 151 left or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's been brutal on them. And they also announced that they're doing, was it Rocket Ranger? They've already announced their next release that they're doing. I'll get back to you guys on this. I'll have to go back and re-examine the email, but I think the end is near. And I believe didn't we talk about a couple of months ago that the purchase of CinemaWare by that virtual reality outfit didn't include this Spins.
Right, it didn't include
thing.
the retro CinemaWare division.
So hopefully, I know what it was. I think it's the release of the port of Rocket Ranger for the Genesis. I think that's the one they were working on.
Okay.
I'll get back to you guys on that. But yeah, it's good to hear from Sven. I hope they get it together.
Yeah,
I mean, I know I think this has been a huge task for him to try to get together, and I'm guessing he didn't have a whole lot of help.
Yeah. I think he's feeling the pressure. So Sven, we want to have you again on the show real soon.
Yeah.
Just let us know.
Yeah. Good luck, man.
Let's see. Gary Hucker wrote in, and he said, "I thought you may be interested in these auction listings from this auction site here in New Zealand." Unfortunately, he forgot to include the links to the auctions that he wants us to look at.
We couldn't bid on them anyway, could we?
No, but it'll be interesting to see what they go for.
What do they use for money in New Zealand?
So he also told me that. He said that they use, let me go to the phone here.
I just threw you right off there, didn't I?
Well, no, I just remember he actually did tell me what they use for money.
I'm going to guess Merkel's.
Merkel's, like Angela Merkel?
Perkles.
Okay. They're actually New Zealand dollars.
No.
So $1 New Zealand dollar is equal to 73 cents.
Okay.
So kind of like Australia, where our dollar is stronger than theirs. And
or current day Canada.
Yeah, or current day Canada. True. So that's that. So Gary, next week we'll take a look at those auctions and we'll give everybody an update on what stuff went for. Eric Nelson on Twitter. He was inspired by us talking about the Raspberry Pi Amiga flash thing. You know, with the SD card, it flashes the firmware in the Raspberry Pi. Turns it into an Amiga.
I remember that.
He said he's been tinkering with it, and so we'll.
He actually fiddled with it, right?
Yeah, so hopefully next week we'll be able to have an update with how Eric did with that.
It seems awesome.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead.
And finally, legendary Wizball on Twitter. That's his name.
Boy, but he don't like us too much.
Oh no, he loves us. He
really?
says,
After what? Did he see us play Wizball?
Well, I think he might have missed that episode.
Good move. It never happened.
But he says we're like the Dukes of Hazzard crossed with the IT crowd.
Have you seen the IT crowd?
I get to be Moss.
Oh, look at you. I love that show.
Yeah.
And I used to like the Dukes of Hazzard when I was a kid.
I've not seen the Dukes of Hazzard in a long time. I don't know if that
still
holds
like
up or
Daisy. She holds up quite nicely.
Does she? She's got to be like 90.
Well, I mean, on the show.
Oh, well,
she still looks good. And her shorts are quite nice.
The Daisy Dukes?
You know, you're more like, I'd say I'm more like Bo, and you're more like Coy.
I'm more
or
like
maybe
Moss.
Vance.
I'm more like Moss.
No, keep telling yourself that, pal.
Is that something I should aspire to be?
Well, I'm just saying, what is your technical prowess? It's pretty good, but it's not.
Thanks a lot, man. That means a lot to me.
I'm just saying.
All right, let's move on. News. What do you got this week?
Oh, well, the first thing I can tell you about is there's sort of a, there was a lack of news this week. I was sitting here trying to think of anything really important. It's okay this week. There's nothing major going on. There's a new game that's out. It's actually not the least bit new. I guess it was it was just held somewhere for a long time. It's called Robotics. It's a boulder dash sort of thing. I've seen some shots, haven't played it, but it's available for everyone now. I guess for the longest time, only the demo was out. I mean, for like, when I say the longest time, even like decades.
Mm-hmm. How do you spell that?
Oh, you're killing me here. It's Roboudix, Robotics. Right, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's, again, boulder dashy type of deal. I was talking to Boat in the pre-show, and he poo-pooed me until we got on here, so I can talk about it now. I've been living the Amiga this week. I've been just all up in it, playing it, fooling with it, waiting. Doing a lot of read on the Vampire too, to see, just kind of get fired up about it. And it's funny. I talked about this last week. I never really paid attention to how much it cost.
Yeah, and I was curious about that too. How much does a Vampire go for?
From what I could find, the one I found listed for the 500 or for the 600 was 99 euros.
Really?
Which that's what, about 160 bucks.
Less than that. The euro is only about $1.20 right now.
Oh, so that's a pretty good return for us. Now your mileage may vary. I don't know what bells and whistles. Like I said, the sales of this thing are. I mean, I guess it was current, but I have no way of knowing. I was also looking at the progress that had been made on the 500 and the 2000 and 1200 version, or the 12,000 if you were me last week. And it's funny, the author, the guy that's putting these together, I was reading on his blog, and he has this big write up on how he's had trouble getting certain connectors for the 1200 version because they don't make them anymore, and the connectors are real expensive to buy now because there's a pile of them that someone owns and they're not selling them cheap. And he's looking for a workaround. He didn't seem too concerned about it, but you don't really think about that kind of stuff when you're the end user. But
right.
As we know from just looking for that power adapter connector, it can be a real bear to find those, or nigh impossible to find them. So that was kind of interesting read. It's neat to follow the production of this stuff. I've seen they had little pictures of the various cards in various states. So it's pretty slick.
Do they seem like they're nearing completion with these?
They said they have something for the 1200 by the end of the year. That doesn't mean they're going to have it ready for sale. I'm guessing that it doesn't seem like the 5 or 2000 ones are too far off. Something while I'm thinking about it, a fellow, I don't have his name right off the top of my head, I can't remember who it was. He sent me, I think it was on YouTube, it was on our podcast, to ask me, or he mentioned to me that, because last week I talked about how excited I was that the 1200 was getting one of these. He was like, listen, do you get what this thing is? It's a process that basically, it's the computer, it's the, effectively it renders the Amiga as a dumb terminal.
Mm-hmm.
I pondered that quite a bit this week because he's got a valid point.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, I remember, gosh, it was probably the second or third show, we talked about at what point is there no longer an Amiga, and we've brought it up a couple other times. I think I can live with it. I've decided the functionality of the machine is still there.
Mm-hmm.
The aesthetics are still there. It still can be used exactly the way it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that making it a non-permanent change, if you want to go back to just using your normal Amiga, you just unplug the card.
It's funny. I was listening to Rob's new episode of You Don't Know Flack, and he was talking about his Apple II blew up. And everyone has told him, and the power supply went out on it, and he said, there's always this debate whether you keep original hardware or not. And, of course, we had the same problem. And we really didn't have a whole lot of choice because we don't have the money to pour into it. We went ahead and bought the little gimmick from Poland that worked. I mean, at some point, I think you got to draw the line. Mm-hmm. This stuff's getting old. I mean, it's not going to be around forever. Parts aren't going to be around forever.
Yeah. I know people with the model of Atari that I have, the 1200 XL. It's the rarest Atari 8-bit model. And people are afraid to actually just, like with the cart that I have, the multi-cart, they don't like it because you have to cold restart the machine every time, and they don't want to cycle that power off and on like that. Blowing it up.
I'm the same way with the CD32. I'm so worried that mechanism is going to go out. I'm afraid to mess with it a whole lot. That's why I never use it, and it makes me feel bad because I paid all this money for this thing, and then it just sits there, Now, the 1200 I feel a little more comfortable with because there's really nothing moving in it like there is in the
right.
I don't use my external floppies. I don't use my floppy for anything hardly. Mm-hmm. Any of that stuff can go bad, and then you got a problem. It sucks. I mean, I've got a Saturn. I just saw this new gimmick that lets you use boots on the Saturn without having to do a swap trick.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. The 3DO. Any of these CD-based systems.
They've got
they're finite,
mm-hmm.
Item. This is non-Amiga news, but just I'm going to bring it up because I know you've got one. I saw someone, they finally released the 7800 multi-card. People that have Amigas, we're very lucky compared to the people that have the 7800. This multi-cart's a bear, man. You have to manually flip jumpers on it to get it to work.
Oh my gosh, wow.
It's brutal. It's about this. It's taller than a cartridge. It sits about that tall in the socket.
I wonder why.
Bank switching, memory stuff. Yeah, I had to look at it before we went live. And it's something. Yeah. So I don't know how big the 7800 was overseas, but I'm guessing just about as big as it was here.
Yeah, not a big hit at all. That's interesting. I think there's a 5200 multi-cart too.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take the computer.
Yeah. 5200 is probably the most useless Atari system because everything worth playing, with the exception of maybe one or two games, was on the 8-bit fewer lines.
Yeah.
And the 7800, well, I mean, they've got Food Fight. That's probably the only thing.
We got Map Mania.
That's true. But did Map Mania was on other stuff, right? Only on the 7800. Okay, so there's 2 games right there.
Yeah. So, but it hurts, stinks.
Yeah.
I don't have it. It's expensive.
Mm.
You know, for all your 7800 needs, you're screwed. I don't think there's anything out there. And we're not going down that road. I can tell you that.
No,
It ain't worth it.
No. So side updates this week. Dreamcatcher at it always. He posted probably what's a 20,000 word review on the game called Liquid Kids.
Yeah, that one got right past me, and I'm going to go back and read it because his reviews are always ridiculously in depth.
Yeah, it's awesome. And he also wrote just today an article about what became of New Star Electronics, and just talking about all the craziness that ensued when Amiga or when Commodore went under, and all the people that were vying to buy the rights to the name and the hardware and all that stuff.
That's a good article. I read that one. If you've been around for a long time, this would have been particularly brutal for people that were into the Amiga from Jump Street.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a late comer like me, it seems like I was in it for just a couple years before the ship sank. And the only way you could follow this was via magazines. You know, I guess back in those days you could have been on like one of the Usenet groups, or one of the news groups.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only way I could follow it at the time was on IRC or something. I mean, I'm trying to think what exactly. There wasn't a whole lot going on back then. It was, you were basically magazines is basically the way. And every time I pick up a magazine, it'd be like, here's what happened with Amiga this month. Here's what happened next month. Oh, they went bankrupt. Blah blah blah. The thing Dreamcatcher wrote. It's just another drop in the ocean of pathetic failures and screw ups that sank the thing. I'll tell you something though, because I read this article. I want to get a little wishy-washy and mushy. And I remember how depressing it was when the Amiga went down. But I'm telling you, this is the new golden age, man. The hardware's coming back. There's a lot of nice stuff coming in the pipeline. They're updating everything. They're updating Workbench. They've made everything streamlined. I think a whole new round of updates will be coming after this. This is probably, I'd say without a doubt, it's the most exciting time and the most uplifting time that Amiga users have had since probably, 91, when you say, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's great. It's fun.
Yeah.
We just got lucky and just had the kind of dumb guy stumble in right
I
at the
feel
right
like
time.
the first golden age post Amiga going away was when the machines like the Amiga 1 came out and all that stuff that Sean Courtney was talking about with but all that stuff was just so expensive.
Yeah. And it didn't have the full spirit of what the Amiga was. This reminds me of the long hiatus between the Doctors.
Yeah.
Sylvester McCoy went down before they brought the series back.
Or between Cocoon 1 and Cocoon 2.
Is this with with Brimley again?
It's with Brimley again.
No,
I'm bringing it back.
Did you ever see either one of those?
No, I've never seen Cocoon.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So, no good.
Oh, it's a shame. Let's talk about H.P. Lovecraft.
All right. H.P. Lovecraft, my boy.
So, just take it away.
Just H.P. Lovecraft,
Yeah,
what a guy.
start talking.
Well,
there's nothing on that paper yet.
yeah, I see that.
I just want you to tell me about H.P. Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft was a writer. He was doing his thing in the early days of the 1900s. There, he kind of got his foothold writing for those. In fact, we just sort of talked about this with your book. He was writing for these old, like pulp fiction magazines, science fiction stuff. I believe the one he really made his mark in was called Weird Stories, I believe was the name of it. And he published an article, and he published several. He published one called The Call of Cthulhu, which is his most famous work. He came from a kind of a weird background. His father had a debilitating disorder that made him go insane to the point that he had to be interred. Yeah, he had to go to an insane asylum, and so HP was a real kind of introverted, strange cat. he was so he graduated from high school, and he was so nervous and upset that he couldn't even go to his own graduation.
Wow.
He used to work nights, all night, sleep all day. That was his MO. That's the way he did things. He's known for his Cthulhu mythos, which is it's not really it's a loose universe of books that sort of all fall in the same sort of under this umbrella of what he called the ancient ones and the great old ones, these cosmic gods that kind of permeate his books. He was very much into astronomy, and this played into a lot of his books. If you've ever read, like, I think it was called A Color Out of Space, and he's done some other ones that a lot of his things come from the stars, and these are beings that are so incredible and so unbelievable that a human cannot process their existence. This is a theme that continues through a lot of his books and short stories. Everyone's got their favorite stuff from Lovecraft. Me personally, I think my favorite book is probably, oh boy, it's tough. My favorite stories from are sort of like The Tomb. Have you read any H.P. Lovecraft?
Yeah, I've read several.
The Tomb is my favorite.
That's pretty good. That's one of his early ones.
Dunwich Horror, of course, is tremendous. Call of Cthulhu is good.
What's the one where the guy, his brain is talking at the end? It's in a jar or something like that.
I know that's the story that Reanimator is based on, isn't it?
I think so. He's hanging out. He goes to this farmhouse somewhere, and like there's these gunshots at night and stuff like that, and something happens. But at the end of it, the guy has been able to leave his body and transfer his existence into like this. It's either a brain or something like a machine, and a lot of his work has been translated into the small screen. The one that comes to mind is if anyone out there has watched a show called Rod Serling's Night Gallery, there's an excellent episode in there that's straight up H.P. Lovecraft. I think it's called Cool Air. I believe that's the name of it. His stuff, he's had stuff that was made into movies. They did a movie that's kind of loosely based on some of his works called the Necronomicon. It starred Jeffrey Combs as a... I thought that was isn't there a novel called the No, I'm thinking...
The Necronomicon is a book. There is a book called that, but it's crap.
Okay.
The Necronomicon was a book dreamed up by Lovecraft and used in some of his stories. I believe it was authored by the mad Arab Abdul Alcazar.
Okay.
I believe it's the guy that made it. But it's H.P. Lovecraft's characters often reference or use these books that you shouldn't read or they'll drive you mad. A lot of his stuff centers around madness or the impossibility of things, and he's been featured a lot in, like I said, cinema with movies coming, and then there's been some lower level movies, and then he's been a lot of audio stuff, old radio shows, but he's also been heavily featured in games. Now, I thought just for fun, since we're doing sort of an H.P. Lovecrafty game, we could talk about a couple of his other ones. Have you played Alone in the Dark?
No, but I've heard of it.
Alone in the Dark sadly didn't come to the Amiga, unfortunately.
It was an early CD title, right? On 3DO, things like that?
I played it on the PC myself. Maybe
I'm thinking about The Seventh Guest.
That was, and that had nothing. That was that was The Seventh Guest. Oh boy, folks. Seventh Guest was really a more of a CD show off how to do it stuff.
Not based on a Lovecraft novel.
No. Alone in the Dark was like one of the first forays into a three-dimensional
Myst sort of thing.
No, it was more like it was sort of like a Resident Evil.
Okay, survival horror.
Yes, it was one of the first ones,
Okay.
and it had like different camera angles and the whole 9 yards. It was a pretty good game. It didn't come out on the Amiga, but it was a good game. Just to go over a couple of these, I'm not going to read a ton. He had a game. There was a game called Anchorhead. I've not played that one, but I've heard of it. This game here, I would say, is if I'm going to play an H.P. Lovecraft game, Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth. That's your game. This was a PC and Xbox, original Xbox release. Have you ever heard of this one?
No.
This is an outstanding game. If you want to get the feel of an H.P. Lovecraft story, the visuals, if you don't mind getting in there and having some action, because you're going to have some pretty good reflexes, this is the game for you. It's a first-person shooter without a gun,
Okay.
basically. I mean, a lot of it, first-person, running around, run like a maniac, be horrified. It's an excellent game, and that's the one I would recommend. They had it came out with sort of a sequel one called Call of Cthulhu: The Wasted Land. I've not seen that one. The Hound of Shadow, of course, directly taken from it. There's a video game called the Necronomicon. I never saw that particular one. Have you heard of? Have you ever played the game?
No, I'm still thinking about that novel. There was Neil Stevenson. Is that?
You got me. I know when I used to go to grade school and middle school, the Necronomicon was in our library, and I was always like, "Oh, Necronomicon," because I knew it from Army of Darkness. I think is where I'd first heard of it, or actually, it was actually the first one. Evil Dead 1.
Is that movie that old?
Evil Dead's pretty. I was in high school when it came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but I mean, they had it in a middle school library. I remember that distinctly. I didn't know what it was until I'd heard. I was like, "What is this? A creepy looking thing?" But I mean, someone just took the name and made something out of it. They had another H.P. Lovecraft World game. I think these are officially licensed one called Prisoner of Ice. I'd heard of that one. I heard it was pretty good.
Is that for PC?
I think that's PC. And another one called Shadow of the Comet. Again, I haven't played that one. I played a little bit of Prison. Some of these are kind of old. It's not as old as what we're playing today, but kind of old. Now, if you want to get real technical, I mean, a lot of stuff borrows from the feelings. Like we mentioned Resident Evil. You could say that was pretty influenced by it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, what these games all have in common that ours isn't is that they have graphics. This game is a traditional, well, I'd say almost fully traditional text adventure with a few still pictures. That's pretty much it.
That's what it is.
I mean,
you would not. It's really a shame because there's nothing wrong with text adventures, but the way that this game sells itself, you would not know that it was a text adventure because on the back there's nothing but pictures, and these are pictures from the game, but there's when you're actually in the game itself, these pictures pop up every now and again, but they really are incidental to the game. They don't give you any extra information, so it's kind of false advertising on the part of Electronic Arts.
yeah. And I didn't know it was a text game, did you?
No. I figured it was going to be a point and click, missed sort of ordeal.
Yeah. Now, I tried to look into this game. There's not a ton on it, okay? It was released in 1989 and at 2 discs. Bo's going to show them to you. The budget publisher, which is what version we've got here, Star Performer. So that explains that. The developer of this game was an outfit called Eldridge Games. Now, Eldridge is that's a term that's used in Cthulhu.
Eldritch Horror is formed by Chris Elliott of Cabin Boy fame.
Yeah, that's the exact thing I thought. It's funny that most of what I found, I've looked at the same thing you are. Most of what I found about Eldridge is written on the inner cover of the manual. The guys that run it are Chris Elliott and Richard Edwards. There's not much on them.
Yeah. Chris he actually studied in Sheffield, but it's the Sheffield Polytechnic. which is now the University of Sheffield Hallam.
It's the bad
It's
Sheffield?
it's just like West Virginia University and West Virginia State.
Oh, so you're killing this
I'm
university.
killing it.
I think it's a fine institution. The other fella, Richard Edwards, he went North End London Polytechnical. And is that what am I reading that right? Polytechnic. North End London.
North End. It's the North End.
Northeast.
Northeast.
Excuse me. There's not much on him. He's unmarried. I guess both these guys did a little. They did a little RPG action or something. That's what
I mean, these guys look like they. It's very interesting because you don't normally get this level of detail about the people that make the game in the manual itself. Like it talks about he's unmarried but not opposed to it in principle.
Yeah, I mean, good. And let's hope by now he's finding a girl.
I hope so.
It says here Mike Lewis did the most of the programming, and he got his computing degree at North Staffs Polytechnic. I guess this means something to somebody. He wrote Red Hawk, which I don't know. I've never heard of that. He wrote the Mystery of Arkham Manor, which I don't know what that is either. I've never heard of that. So I mean, I'm not sure these are even games. And then Carl Cropley did the graphics. Apparently, he did some things here that no one ever saw, according to what he's got written in here. Now, I had a look to see if these guys had done anything. Eldridge has no more games on the Amiga. They had one more game overall, which I'll talk about that in a minute. The coder, Colin McLaughlin, he was involved in Desert Strike: Return to the Gulf, which that's an interesting game.
Yeah, that's a nice isometric.
The graphics guy, Carl Cropley, he also did Return to the Gulf. He did a bunch of other stuff, but the ones that caught my eye were Return to the Gulf. He did John Madden.
Huh.
Kind of wacky, yeah. And then Chris Elliott was involved in the creation of a game which I keep hearing about. We got to try this one. Master Axe: The Genesis of Mr. X. Now, I think it's some kind of really bad fighting game.
Oh, that sounds like it's
but
right up our alley.
I have not played it. And Richard Edwards has not done anything else on the Amiga. Now, again, I mentioned that Eldridge had one more game. We talked about this, when we were doing the stream, but this game is supposed to have been the first of a series of games. When you start the game, you create a character and you pick out a lot of different attributes. There's a ton of them in there, and your languages you speak, and
and it's amazing. Like you look at the manual here, and there are, I mean, categories after categories, physical skills. It's like you're rolling a character in D&D. That's what they wanted it to look like. They've got evade, climb, driving, handgun, pilot, ride. As far as I can tell, as far as we can tell, these skills have absolutely no bearing, right?
Well,
on the game.
From what I was able to find, these guys had developed something called the Timeline Computer Role-Playing System. This was to be the first game in a series of Timeline role-playing game systems, and the gimmick was going to be you could take your character disc and use it on any of the games in the system. Mm-hmm. There might be another Cthulhu game. There might be an Indiana Jones game. There might be a Fight Aliens game. Who knows? But you've got all. I'm going to go on the assumption that they did all those stats because they thought, okay, we got one shot at establishing this system. We'll get all these stats. We won't use them all in this game. Now I've read all the walkthroughs to this. Me and Boat have played it quite a bit, and the stats, as far as I could tell, at some points the language stat comes into play if you can read a certain language. But even if you can't, there's usually there's a person there to read it to you.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, there is a glossary included in the game that has French, German, and Italian. So and it's a full glossary. So you possibly could just use this glossary to translate any puzzles that you might have.
Kind of neat.
Yeah.
So what is the game? Let's go ahead. I don't think we've fully fleshed it out. The game starts. You're a fellow in 1923, I think it is, and you go with your buddy to a séance, and something happens at the séance. A spirit's released, and it's the Hound of Shadow, and then you begin your investigation. This game is totally text-based, with the exception of occasionally a picture will appear.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the game when you're rolling your stats, that's all done with the mouse and a graphical user interface. You've got a pointer and everything. So it leads you to believe, and it's really a shock that when you actually start playing the game, that it's totally Zork. That's what it is.
Yeah. There are some neat aspects of the game. There are some things to make it a little more modern. You can use the function keys to, instead of typing in like examine and open and stuff like that, you can use those for sort of a quick shortcut. The game, anytime you go somewhere, generally there'll be a picture. We found that when you went to into the city, for example, there'd be pictures of a city block, there'd be pictures of a museum, there'd be pictures of a library, there's pictures of your house, but it's not unlike say like a Gabriel Knight or something where you're going to go through and pick stuff out of the picture with your mouse or something. You don't do that on this. It's just you see a picture.
It just is to set the scene in your mind for where you are. That's all it is.
And then it goes away and you see more text.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the pickings were slim on this particular game. I went to look to watch a walkthrough. There's not one, so I just sat and played it for a while. And then me and Bo attempted to play the whole game here with a walkthrough earlier, and then the copy protection screwed us.
Yeah, we got past the first copy protection screen, but then there was a second one, and we put in exactly what it said because we had the real manual here.
Yeah, and it once. One of the big, I guess this is something you see occasionally, but not often, is you get two chances. If you don't type in the right thing, it just unceremoniously ends the game and just boots you back out, and you're done. So all the work and all the time we spent on it's gone.
Yeah.
And after that happens, we were just kind of fed up with it. Let's talk about the actual content. It's pretty good. It's written well. Bo pointed out, it's sort of written in a flowery way. H.P. Lovecraft was known as very descriptive. He used a lot of, as we call them over here, 50-cent words or
$5 words.
the big words. He was really into that kind of creepy, descriptive text. This game isn't quite that flowery, but we didn't see anything too horrific. I didn't anyway.
Yeah, maybe we didn't get far enough in.
Well, I got killed once when I played it, and it is what it is. Again, Eldritch Games had a sequel, or a second game. It was called Daughter of Serpents. It was also known as The Scroll. This was not an Amiga game. I didn't look into it that much, but I was intrigued just by the sheer fact that, yes, they'd put out another game. Daughter of Serpents was a DOS game.
I love the description there in your paper. It's a detective / mystery / horror puzzle solving Egypt interwar game.
That's all you need to know. That sums it up fully. I looked at some screenshots from it. It seems to be not a text game. It's something else.
Good move.
And again, it was a DOS game. I'm guessing it did not do well. I'm guessing this didn't do that well either. But who could tell? Again, numbers may vary. I did look this up on eBay, which is usually a good barometer on how well a game sold by me. And believe it or not, I was actually surprised that there were copies available, to be honest with you. In the U.S., you can get a box set right now for between $35 and $38 shipped. If you're overseas, it's a little more hard sailing. You're looking at $14 just for the discs.
Wow.
And then $40 or best offer for a box version that's out now. One sold in June in the U.S. for $26, and in France one sold in May for $21. So there's not a ton of these out there. I can't imagine there's a big, amongst Lovecraft fans, there's probably a hankering for this sort of thing, just to kind of get a bunch of the games. But I can't imagine that there's a big hankering for it. I'm trying to think if I ever played a text game on the Amiga. I'm sitting here thinking anything that was pure text. I think, and I mean, pictures aside, this is a text game. I can't think of any that I've played. Doesn't mean they weren't out there, but I've never played them.
I feel like I'm sure that all the major games were ported. Like I'm sure there's Zork and Hitchhiker's Guide and stuff.
Probably
like that.
so, because it was so simple.
But I think if you had an Amiga, if you plunked down the cash for an Amiga, that was the last thing that you want to play.
Well, and that's the problem with this game with me. The content, of course, I'm into, but this is an Amiga, man. Come on, give me something. This is a game. I'll tell you, a game with no music on the Amiga, that's inexcusable, man. A game with like that kind of
sepia tone. The pictures aren't even color pictures.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand maybe they were going for, the pre-war theme of, no color pictures, but come on, like
you could at least the cityscapes and stuff
Right.
could have been in there. You don't have to have the sepia. It screams of laziness to me. Now maybe they were just being very artistic, right? No music, that's a fail. Crappy, no happening graphics is a fail. I mean, you've got stuff out there that uses a very nice point-and-click interface for your inventory. You could have a combination of text and graphics. At least have a screen up there. I mean, for God's sakes, my Coco had graphics with their text adventures that were there full-time and actually did stuff. The Coco. So this game was a game out of time. I looked at some of the reviews here, and the game, I mean, actually some people kind of dug it. It had some stuff in the upper 70s and mid 60s. Now, it got completely panned by Amiga format. They gave it a 45%. Probably, yeah. I mean, I read that review, and they were basically like, hey, what are we doing? Yeah, and they're right. Like we said, no graphics, no sound. That's a bummer. So I can only recommend this one if you're really into the kind of Lovecraft thing. I mean, this is not it's not top-notch writing. It's pretty good from what I've seen. I've not finished it, but I've got a little further than I got about the same as we did on the pre-show, about 4 or 5 days in. And so unless something incredible happens, it wasn't doing it for me. And I'm a fan of the genre. So, but if you feel froggy and you like those old text adventures, you might want to give it a whirl. I don't know. Would you put this stuff? You've played some of that old tech stuff, haven't you? Zords.
Yeah, I mean,
Wizardry.
if you like it, then you'll like it. If you don't, I mean, the writing's not bad. It's odd at the beginning. You type wait 6 or 7 times in a row.
I found that you can type pretty much anything, and it'll have. Yeah.
And so, like, I guess it's very open ended. Maybe that's a positive way of looking at it. But yeah, I just don't have the patience anymore in my advanced age to play stuff like that. When I was a kid, it was the only game in town. It was more fun, but I don't think I'll be revisiting the Hound of Shadow.
What would have been awesome is you've taken the time to make a cool character up. I would like to have seen that implemented a lot more. And
because you can spend a lot of time making your stats and everything like that. It's a huge part of the pregame.
And like Boat said, you take all the time to make this guy, and then it really makes no difference.
No.
And being, we used to call it a plot wagon in the role-playing days, when basically someone drags you towards the main plot, kicking and screwing. That's what this game does at the beginning. You have no choice in the matter. You just do what it says. It doesn't matter what you type. And I mean, some of the stuff, God, without the walkthrough, it would have been pretty heady stuff.
Oh yeah.
So your mileage may vary. Hey, if anyone out there solved this game, drop us a line. I'd like to hear what you thought. Overall, because, like I said, we haven't beaten it, and apparently no one on YouTube's beaten it, because I looked all over to try to find it. Someone that had a walkthrough and they didn't have one. So, maybe we'll put one up eventually when we're feeling a little more patient.
Oh, you know what? We forgot to mention that we played a huge Cthulhu campaign that lasted years.
Yeah, we did, and it was great. My brother ran it. You've seen him on the show. It was some top shelf work, frankly.
Yeah.
Boat had a tremendous character in this game, the captain. In fact, I'm looking at his little statue over there on the table. And we had a real good time with our Cthulhu game. If you haven't role-played Cthulhu, you should.
It's great.
If you're that kind of nerdy type that does RPGs. I wonder how many...
Which, you're listening to this show, so yes, you are.
I was just wondering if there's a crossover between Amiga and role-playing game people.
It's the same crossover with comic books and wrestling.
Because I've had a series in my head I was going to compare the gold box games to what I was doing the year they released in role playing, and I thought, does anyone give a crap about that?
People would go crazy for that. They'd love it. They'd love it.
I don't know. I can't imagine people. Surely they had better things to do than role playing. And by the way, ARG Presents just a couple years ago, so
we haven't done anything since then.
But I closed the door on that one.
Yeah.
But thank you, O'Brien's.
Yeah, we want to thank O'Brien's Retro and Vintage for donating us this copy of this game. I'm sorry that it took us 9 months to get around to reviewing it, but
it's funny.
did.
We were saving it for what we were saving when we got the green screen,
right?
Then we were saving it for Halloween, and last week Buck's like, let's do it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, because it needed to happen, so we did it.
And still we're gonna, hopefully the next couple of weeks we're gonna watch that awesome movie.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank the rest of our supporters out there: Paul Harrington, Lauren Giroux, Loggins, Jonas Rullo, Kilborn Barman, Tapes from the Crypt, Adam Bradley, Chris Folds, Will Williams, Daniel Bingston, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Chad Halstead, and Brent Dowdy. So Aaron. Oh, and if you'd like to support us, head on over to our page at patreon.com/Amigos Podcast. Don't forget to check out our blog at Amigos Podcast for all the wacky stuff that Dreamcatcher is going to put up there, and Will Williams also. Who else should we thank? I want to thank Paul Kitching for doing this awesome graphic. We haven't mentioned him in a while.
Not real.
As much
in case you were wondering from last week, there's big gashes that were
forming in it. That was Cthulhu.
We meant to do that.
Let's see. And of course, we want to thank you for liking us on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Thanks for listening to the show. Next week, Aaron, I think it's time that we do Alien Breed.
Did we play Alien Breed on the
We've done an Amigos plays on it, but with a game like that, I think it deserves its own episode.
All right, fair enough. Also, I really liked it. I'd like to play it more.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Alien Breed.
We'll do Alien Breed. All right. Until next time.
Adios.